Hello, everyone. Well, so have you ever gone to a tournament or a league and someone hands you one of those pattern sheets and ever wonder exactly what those things actually mean, how to read them, how to play them actually, what equipment to look at using, what does drop brush mean? Well, today we're going to help you with that. We're going to make it simple and easy to understand so you can put your game into action. So, but before we get into today's show, again, we want to give a massive thank you and shout out to today's sponsor, Masculine Man Essentials. I'm telling you, please look at supporting this company. I've got their product right here. This is a all natural deodorant. It's made here in the US. And if you go to the domain you see on here, and enter Bowlers Network in the coupon, you get 10% off. But again, please consider supporting them as they're doing a lot for the game of bowling. And I use the stuff. It is amazing, smells amazing, and has all natural, no aluminum. All right, so Carolyn's traveling.
Yes.
As you can see, she's in an airport.
Isn't Carolyn
as
always
usual.
traveling? Isn't Carolyn always traveling?
You
Yeah,
are
but
always trying. You know what?
two
Look at the
off
commitment
next
this
week.
lady has to providing all of us in the world of needing education. Look at her. She's traveling, yet pulls
I find
aside
a
and
spot.
opens her laptop up.
I find the spot. I don't know what the heck my hair looks like. I don't know if my makeup.
You look beautiful. You know that. You could wear a gunny sack,
Cool.
Carolyn, and look beautiful.
Oh, please, please. Yeah, so let's talk some bowling. Let's go.
All right, we're going to get started. First of all, before we get into the main topic, we want to do a PBA Player of the Year update. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, all right. And then we're going to get into the Queens. So let's pull up where the standings are for the PBA right now. And you'll notice on the bottom, Spencer, I didn't have his final numbers before I had to throw this up here. So
am I allowed to make this bigger? Am I allowed to make this bigger just to look? Okay, just checking. All right.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So we've got EJ at the top. I mean, going for, what would that be, his fourth year in a row? Player of the year? Without a win. Yeah, without a win. Yeah. And this was Carolyn's take at the beginning of the year when we started this. She picked her number one, her player of the year, as the easy pick. So, but now, hey, Carolyn, is the rookie of the year all but wrapped up? I mean, in your mind, Brandon Bonta?
I can't really see the numbers or the stats. What is the difference between Brandon and Spencer?
Spencer's got like 11,500, I think is what it is now. And then Brandon's at 15,150.
Well, since the season is mostly over, correct? Because I think they have another event. We have the Lucy. I think, though, is it 10,000 to win? You do have the Lucy coming up, and then you also have Sweden that I believe counts for the player of the year, does it not?
Well, I don't see why it wouldn't. It's a PBA event.
And it's a national title.
Right.
So I want to say you're looking at that scenario of Spencer probably must win or finish in that top 5 range, as well as Brandon needs to keep bowling well to hold on to that lead. So I'm not going to say it's sewn up yet, but Brandon is going into the last few events with a pretty good lead.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it would almost have to be one that, Brandon's plane doesn't make it to the next event for weather or whatever.
But I'll tell you, this is another testament to, and as we'll talk about it with the ladies as well, these rookies came out, there's no fear. They are prepared for the next step coming out of college into the professional ranks. Again, Wichita State graduates. Anytime you say bowling, Wichita State is in the top 2. So you're not talking about a program that didn't prepare them for what they were going to do in the next step. And you're going to see that as well with the women. But, you're going to see this in the next 2 to 5 years. These rookies coming out, you really can't call them rookies. I almost feel like we need to think of a new name for Rookie of the Year because they're very well seasoned for what's ahead of them.
Yeah, That is that. Well, you're right. I mean, and we've talked about this pretty much all season long, right? Is these rookies are so prepared, they're so ready to come out, and the question then has always been posed as well: is the floor rising or is the ceiling dropping? And as far as overall players, we can see clearly that the floor is rising. The depth of the field is getting so strong. So excuse us, folks, as the background Carolyn's in an airport. So
Sorry.
no,
We
that's
tried.
okay. Tell her to be quiet back there. All right, let's move on to the Queens.
It's awesome. Awesome.
The Queens right now going on, and okay, we've got to say,
Yep.
Tin Lizzie, if you're listening, love you to
Tin
death.
Lizzie.
Tin Lizzie,
Yep.
she is killing it. Holy crap!
She is. Yeah,
she's
go ahead.
averaging 249, almost 250 for her first block.
Right. It's amazing because I saw her. I picked her to lead this, especially after the first round. I wouldn't be shocked if she leads going into match play. It's a very high friction surface here. And I know the scores are on the high side, but I have the pattern sitting here. I want you to think about this, though. It's a high friction surface, which means there's built-in friction. As much as you clean a lane, as much as you try to say it's flat, but it's not. Topography comes into play. It's got a lot of play on it. Gold Coast is used for a lot of events. 38 feet, only 30 mils. Now, we think 30 mils at times is a lot. In today's environment, it really isn't, especially in a high friction surface. They're using a combination of fire and ice. So ice is more of the oil that's going to allow it to hold up more in the front. Fire burns up a little bit quickly. With the combination of both, it really does allow the front and the middle to hold up really well. It's almost like that combination of the terrain and glide that I like to see now. So with the women, what they've done is, we've talked about this on the last podcast, the women have a tendency to play the pattern just a little bit better than the men, where it doesn't break down as fast. So yes, they've used a little bit of surface, anything from 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000, bigger balls to start, transition up or down, depending on how you're trying to play them, trying to stay further right. 1, 2, 3 had a little spark, but you really needed to move into that 5, 6, 7 area. Not a lot of angle. You could keep your angles pretty straight, which once again is in Liz's wheelhouse. I plan on seeing a Lee Jane Sin coming up today, bowling a lot better than she did even yesterday. But the scores will continue to stay high. The ladies, again, tend to stay on top of the pattern. And what that means is they tend to stay further right longer. Play the pattern, the integrity of the pattern, the way it should be played, and then migrate slowly left of where you need to be. But not many people played in yesterday. You didn't see anybody get left of 12, 13. I mean, maybe a few, Honora a little bit further left. She bowled very well. But other than that, you're going to see most of the ladies stay to the right. It's a great event. I love this event. It's one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah, well, the numbers have been exceptionally high, and I just got to give kudos. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so Alyssa, is this her first Queens?
She's all good. No, she's bowled a couple of them. I think, she's going to use this summer to kind of get her feet wet as to what it takes to really be out here. She's going to bowl a couple of events. She had a good first day. So we'll see what happens. A lot of great bowlers out here. What I'm seeing too, especially with the men as well, Jay, and you've mentioned it, a lot of great regional players, people that are not bowling full time, will come out to bowl some of the bigger events. And you're seeing that both on the men's and the women's tour. Not many people can, if they have a job, can't take off from their job for a week to go bowl an event. So the women's events, because they're held on the weekend, give a lot of the regional players an opportunity when they're in their area to participate. And, I think if we can grow that and then hopefully in the next few years, spin it into something truly full-time, with some more money, some more events, I think you're going to see a surge of women out there bowling full time. And I hope that happens.
Well, yeah, and just to keep this in context, folks, we're talking a 38-foot sport pattern. Okay, you know, this is not a house shot.
Right. No.
And you have Liz averaging 249 for her first block. You have
Right.
Alyssa averaging 224 for her first block. I mean, just to give
Right.
you a context of the level and although Alyssa is bowling exceptionally well at 224, she's in 32nd place.
Right. She's in the
Right?
middle. I mean, the
Yeah.
scores are pretty high. It also shows, again, just like I said with the men's tour, you know, a lot of these college bowlers are coming out so prepared. And one thing I always try, especially tell Alyssa, but to tell a lot of, because I'm kind of a mom figure to some of the other girls who didn't bowl as well yesterday. I try to tell them one tournament does not define you. They're trying their best. Sometimes things don't match up, right? But one tournament doesn't define you. Just because you don't do great in one event, it's not like you should go home and quit. You know, there's a lot of opportunities out there. I think the competitive nature of the youth now is so strong that the pressure that they put on themselves is double the amount of pressure that I ever thought of putting on myself at such a young age. So I try to tell them to enjoy what they're doing, learn from every experience, and just hang tough and believe in yourself and be kind to yourself, because one tournament does not define whether you're a good bowler or not.
Yeah. Well, and that's great wisdom that you're sharing. And I guess what I want to try and get across, and we're going to move on to our next topic, is folks, if you don't pay attention to the PWBA and watch these ladies bowl, you are missing. I guess what I would say is probably the second, I guess just as good of action as the PBA. This is phenomenal bowling, and it's fun to watch. It's exciting. It's competitive. So please pay attention to this tour. They're just awesome
Yeah,
bowlers.
and just one more thing to top that off, Jay. If you're somebody who's watching right now, not and by the way, the men's tour and the women's tour totally different fundamentals. But women tend to bowl more like an average bowler, right? Like, and what I mean by average is their fundamentals are a little more what you would say is traditional, right? And at the end is where the power of the release comes in. So you can learn a lot from both tours. But if you're just a beginner bowler or somebody who's really trying to get to that next level, the women, their basics and their fundamentals are a little bit easier to understand and copy than the men.
Great point.
And again, that's not putting down the men. It's just men and women's bowling is a little bit different. So I'd like to take that into consideration, and the fact of I get a lot of questions about spare shooting. The women, if you see them shoot a spare, it looks just like their first shot. They just have a plastic ball in their hand.
Great
so
point.
That's just something to take into consideration.
So if I can, I'm going to ask you all, comment below who your favorite women's bowler is and who you think will end up as player of the year. Right. So we want to engage the fans here and viewers just as much on the women's tour as we do the men's tour, because that's going to help grow the game of bowling. So there's a reason we want you to do that. And there's another reason. Before we get into the next topic about how to read oil patterns, again, I want to make another live read for our sponsor, Masculine Man Essentials. Okay, I'm going to pull one out. Yes, oh brother, I'm going to pull one out.
Lord.
Oh lordy. Guys, this stuff is amazing. Oh, it smells so good. 100% natural, made in the U.S., no aluminum, all natural stuff, no chemicals again. Go to the domain you see and enter Bowlers Network as the coupon code. You're going to get 10% off. They support bowling. Let's support them. All right, move on. Oil patterns, how to read them. What does all of that stuff mean? Okay, so we're going to pull up one that I got here, the U.S. Open 2019 pattern. Okay, distance, ratio, drop brush, volume, forward, reverse. What does all that mean? Okay, we're going to answer those questions. You see the pattern on the right, you see the colors of the oil, you see three different colors. Okay, you see a darker red or burgundy, a little bit lighter, and then a hint, and then white. So we're going to explain all this stuff so you can understand it and put it into action. Okay, so let's take that out of the screen. We're going to get into now understanding what these things mean. So let's start with the very basic. Okay, we're going to go back. Before we get into that, let's talk about the rule of 31. I know we know this, we've talked about it.
Correct.
Okay, but let's just quickly put that up. What exactly is the rule of 31? Okay, so Carolyn, here's what I got. You put your thoughts into this, okay? Rule of 31 simply says, if the pattern says the length is 45 feet, minus 31 of that, so that means 14 is going to be our break point. So let's pull up the break point here. Okay, I got a graphic of what the break point means. That simply is saying that is where the ball theoretically should change from the skid phase to the hook phase. Okay, so if we have 45 feet, the rule of 31 says at board 14 is where your break point should be. Okay, theoretically. Carolyn, explain more of that.
So, correct. So I'm actually going to go a little bit further, and then you can elaborate on it. 31 is your rule of thumb to give you an idea of where the ball should exit the pattern. Okay, this is where you should get your ball to before it makes the change towards the pocket, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be 14. It could be 12, 13. It could be 15, 16. But what it does is it gives you an idea of where the integrity of the pattern should be. So it gives you a starting point. But in your practice shots, would I try some other parts of the lane? Absolutely, 100%. Because this is just a rule of thumb. This isn't defined in stone. It's just to give you an idea. I'd like to elaborate just a little bit on that, though, Jay. I try to keep it extremely simple. So you've already talked about the length of the pattern. I do three things: length of pattern, the volume of oil, right? And what the oil is. Okay.
The type of oil.
So the type of oil that they are using. So you gave your 45 feet. How much oil was on that pattern? I didn't get
that
to see.
Was 27 mil. 27 mil. 27
mils in today's environment is not a lot of oil. It's just not a lot of oil. So you're already looking at a 45-foot pattern, which more than like you're going to be playing a little bit closer to the head pin. That's something we'll elaborate, I'm sure, on another show. The longer the pattern, the closer to the head pin you want to be, right? You want your ball, there's going to be less time for your ball to hook to the pocket, right?
Because remember now, folks, I'm sorry to jump in on you.
No,
there's
go right
60
ahead.
feet, 60 feet from the head pin to the foul line. Okay, so if we only have 15 feet to Carolyn's point, so go ahead.
So you want to be closer to the pocket. You have 20. I'm sorry, I think you said 27.
27 mil. 27 mil.
27 mils. Not a lot of volume. So to me, that already tells me I'm not going to have 500 on my ball. May not even have 1,000. I may have just about a 1,500, a 2,000 to take the shine off of it, because what is a shiny ball going to do on that longer pattern?
It's just going to keep
get
skidding
down the lane even further. Correct. So you're still going to want just a little bit, knock that shine off, but I don't think you're looking at a 500 or 1,000, because why? 27 milliliters is not a lot of oil. Again, if you're using fire, not a heavy viscosity, which means it's going to come off the lane a little bit quicker, faster. It's not going to hold up as much, which is why they combine fire and ice together. Fire is a little bit lighter, ice is a little bit heavier in viscosity. So they blend together to even out that pattern. What you're trying to do is make sure that your ball reads that middle part of the lane, which we're going to do a full segment on this. I'm going to send this to Jay today. I want to talk about the three parts of a lane. and why they're important and when you should read them. But the majority of the time, your ball needs to read that middle part of the lane somewhere to figure out when that ball is going to start to head towards the head pin.
Awesome. So that is a great segment, and I'm going to absolutely start preparing topics for that. So now let's get into the ratio. Okay. So what exactly does the ratio mean? In the U.S. Open pattern I pulled up, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, a typical house pattern.
Board one, correct.
Yep. So a typical house pattern is going to have anywhere from 10 to 15 to 1. Okay.
Right.
Explain that real quickly, Carolyn. What does ratio mean?
Ratio means what they're doing board to board with the oil. Okay. And as you can see on the pattern that you brought up, it looks very flat. Right? That's a flat pattern. The color goes right across. Look at that, right? So that right there tells me, besides it being a long pattern, right there, it's completely flat, which means it's pretty much ratioed out across the lane, right? Your angles to start should be straighter, should be a little more in front of you until the pattern tends to break down. I personally, now, this is just a personal thing, so I'm really not the guru on this one. I was not a thinker, so I did not really focus on ratios and shapes. What I would do is basically look at that pattern the way you just did. I looked at the three things, like I said, the oil, the amount, the distance. But when I did look at the shape on the paper, that automatically told my brain my angles need to be straighter in front of me to start. It's a flat pattern. I should not have a lot of area to start. But if people play the pattern the way it needs to be, that pattern could develop into something very, very easy and very playable as you just continue to move left and bump the track.
And the reason for that, what Carolyn just said, is because of the amount of oil, the volume, and the type of oil.
Correct.
Okay, because those two things means that it's only 27 mil, and that I believe it said this one is actually ice. Okay. So if it was fire, it would burn up a little bit quicker, so it would develop a track. Okay. So you can move left. Yes. So you can move left, and you have a little more hold. And if you miss out a little bit, you're going to have that bumper, if you will, on that track area that you develop. Okay?
Correct. So, and you know, if I could give some bowlers a tip, don't get so caught up in the numbers and the drop brush and you could drive yourself crazy. What I would do is, though, you touched on something. What I would do is I would go and learn, just read up a little bit on what each oil, what their integrity is, or what they're designed to do. Like, what is fire designed to do? What is ice designed to do? What is terrain, glide? So that when you do see that on a pattern, your head will tell you, ice, a little bit slicker. I'll probably use a little surface. Fire, a little bit less viscosity. I won't use as much surface. That actually is another tool in your bag to having you ahead of a move that you may not have had beforehand. Because really, what oil they're using is really going to tell you on how that pattern's probably going to break down.
So great point. In fact, probably the best point is the type of oil. So when you add all of these things together, so let's pull up a house shot once. We've got a house pattern here. So let's pull this up. Okay. So when we look at the house pattern, it's a Christmas tree.
Skinny Christmas tree.
Right. And so this is Kegel oil. But now if you look at it, so imagine, folks, that you're going to see now when you throw a ball at league and you're like, oh my gosh, I got away with that one because I pulled it 5 boards to the left, right? And you still struck. Okay. It's because of the way the oil is laid out. You're going to see it in the dark oil is heavier as you start moving left. If you throw it out, right, it'll still come back because it's dry. Okay. So that is the difference between a PBA or PWBA pattern and a house pattern. Okay. So let's now go just a quick explanation. So let's pull up one of these again.
I just want to say one thing. So the house pattern, just a little tidbit of information. Again, we'll talk about this in depth. at another time. When you're bowling on a house pattern, the biggest question I get is, how do I create hold? Because when I get it right, it hooks. When I get it left, it sometimes it hooks. It doesn't hold all the time. I'm sorry. When I get it right, it hooks. When I get it left, it holds, but it may not roll. To create hold on a house pattern, the easiest way to do it is with angle and ball speed. Okay? So just if you're playing the dry, you may want to up your ball speed just a little bit and make sure you have just a little bit of angle so that when you do miss that little bit left, it now holds. And when you miss right, it doesn't overreact in the dry. So angle, hold is created by angle. It really is angle and ball speed. So that's something you can practice when you're, out practicing on your own before a league.
Yeah, and two things to add into that, work on, is being able to increase your axis rotation. Okay, that's one. Get around the ball a little bit and maybe increase your loft a little bit. Okay, delay that hook as long as you can if you're running into that. Okay, so something to think about. All right, so now let's just go through some terms just so you understand when you're looking at this. Okay, so when we talk about forward brush, I don't want to get too far into the technicalities, but it's important stuff to at least have an understanding of. So what happens is when the oiler is going down the lane, okay, it is the forward brush means it is applying oil. So let's pull up one of the patterns again. Here, let's pull up the US Open one. Okay, so it has forward brush to 18.5 feet. That means that the oiler is lane oil down to 18.5 feet. Now you're going to see drop brush to 45 feet. It stops lane oil down at 18.5, but it is dragging that oil through the brush, if you will, and flattening the oil out to the distance of 45 feet. And then it's lifting up the brush altogether. Then when it comes back, all right, now you're seeing reverse oil. You'll see that second little strip in there, the medium colored one. It is laying a second application, not really second application, right? But it is laying down oil again, 8.75 feet, or yeah, I think it's what I'm looking at here. Anyway, it's laying oil down again past that forward brush. I can't really read it up here, all the way to the foul line. So, Carolyn, explain it. Am I wrong in anything there, or did I say things correctly?
I think I think when you look on the pattern, it tells you right there to the left where the forward brush and where the back, the reverse brush is coming. What I like to look at is, if you can bring that pattern back up one more time, please, is see the top, the very top where you're almost looking at it as a 3D.
Yep.
That tells you right there that it's flat right there, because there's no shape to it.
Right.
So it's already giving you some ideas of where the heaviest oil is being laid down, which is where, again, you're going to need your ball to read, right? Or if you use something too shiny, it's just going to go down the lane 26 feet, right? You don't want that. It's a 40-foot pattern. So again, if you just look at, even not so much the numbers, look at that graph up on the top that almost looks like a straight line going across. That tells you right there that there's not much shape in that pattern, okay? In the front especially. That should tell you right then and there that, again, angles are straight, very little surface because of the amount of oil and the oil that they're using. And if you really want to learn about the drop brush, which I learned minimal, is Kegel has some great tutorials on their website.
Yeah, there you go. Go to kegel.com.
They are the guru of lane patterns. But again, the three things I look at: distance, volume, oil used.
All right, Carolyn, we're going to go into the bowling buster real quick.
Hurry up. You're only a minute down, I see.
I know. Well, so ready. The more I learn about bowling, the more I realize how little I know. Confirmed or busted?
It's super, super, super confirmed.
All right. I'm going to do the same thing. 1,000% confirmed. I'm going to double confirm it. All right. Before we head out, I do want to just bring up a couple of comments from our fans, and then Carolyn, you got to take us out and you got to get to your gate. Number one, from Monk Amani. I met Tom and Walter Ray at Thunder Bowl years ago simultaneously. I was awestruck. Man, we're so happy for you. All right, next one from Polar Bear Chad 5871. I'm a bowler with cerebral palsy, slide off the wrong foot. I have always tried too hard to generate power like my other teams. Once I told myself I can't do what they can, I kept an average of 198 to 205, beating all of them.
Perfect.
Man, oh man, oh man. Play within
Do
yourself.
exactly what you can be consistent at. Perfect.
Play within yourself. Last one, real quick, from Theme Zero EV1. So he says 2231. This is the clearest explanation of the remedy to this issue I've ever heard. Skid long, ring 10, skid short, flat 10. Okay, when we were talking about why we leave so many corners. So, Carolyn, take us out. But before you do, again, Masculine Man Essentials. Support them. They support us. Bowlers Network is your coupon code for 10% off. Take us out.
Well, thanks to everybody for joining us. Farmers Union Insurance, thank you as always for also being a sponsor here on The Daily Show. We will be back on Friday at 12 Central Time. Where will I be? Or is today Friday?
Today's Friday. I was going to say, no, on Monday.
Today's Friday. Okay, on Monday, because I'm going to the Pink concert tonight in San Diego. So we will join you on Monday at noon Central Time, where we are growing all of the bowling community. And it's not only about bowling. I encourage all of you who are watching, please invite your proprietors and everybody within the bowling community to join us here on the Bowlers Network. See everybody Monday.